Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another of the 2022 Collecta figures, as we have the only aquatic species for the 2022 year. We have the Cooperoceras. And this is another really cool looking model, something that Collecta seems to be doing as the years go by within the last probably like 3 years. It seems like they've definitely had some focus on these type of cephalopods, and it's really cool to see them continuing to give us some really cool models of different species in the cephalopod family. And again, this time a very striking looking Cooperoceras, and a beautiful looking paint scheme, I think, for it. It has kind of like almost like a metallic shine, sort of, which really helps the model to stand out. And as if it didn't stand out enough with this extremely peculiar appearance to it, again, that paintwork definitely helps the overall appeal factor, I think, for the figure. And it definitely sports a pretty nice size. You can see here in comparison to my hand, so that is also a plus. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this right now. So with the model up here in the light, I feel like you can definitely see the really shiny kind of metallic type coloration a lot nicer. It really stands out, I think, better up here when you see it again in a very nice light. And you can also take note to the fact that it has an absolutely awesome looking sculpt with lots and lots of detail. If you start up here in the kind of like tentacle area of the Cooperoceras, you can see that there is just tons of them all over the place, and you can also see that they are very nicely sculpted but also nicely painted, as they sport kind of like a light brown with like some darker browns. Actually, it's more of like a light orangish brown almost, with some darker browns showing up and kind of spotting throughout. And that same design kind of continues up here on the top of the animal, as you see again a different variation of light brown up here, but you can see that again we have that dark brown speckling but also a different shade of dark brown. So Collecta has really done a good job as far as giving it some pretty nice color variation. But if you get nice and close, you can actually see how nice the texturing and everything is to the tentacle-like area of our Cooperoceras, and again, how nice and naturally that paint application is applied. Over here in the eye area, you can see that we have a very nice white coloration as well as a black, and then kind of a black streak that runs down here. Really interesting look for the figure. As we move here along to the underside, again, you can see more really nice texturing, like specifically right here. Look at how beautifully textured that is. Very nice, very fine detail throughout the course of the figure, which is beautifully done. But as you move out here a little further into the body, again, that's where we pick up on that kind of metallic look for the figure. And you also can see that as we transition out here, we transition to a dark brown. Again, and that absolutely runs the course of the entire figure the entire way through. But aside from that, you can see some pretty nice like creasing and stuff here running along the course of the figure. You can see the same thing if we look over here at the opposing side. You're really not going to see too much difference from one side to the other, again, due to the appearance of the animal. It's not in any type of a drastic different look on this side any more so than what we had just seen on the initial side. But you can see how smooth the paint application is, especially when transitioning to the brown tips. You can see it is a very nice, very realistic transition out into that area. And you can see that we also have some brown up here as well that kind of borders around on the inside there of that loop, and that as well looks really nice. Again, very nice and naturally applied throughout the course of the figure. You can see the underside does sport the Collecta logo and the title of the species as well as the year that it was made, but it also sports some really nice detailing under here as well, again, as far as like that really nice texturing. Not really much going on color-wise or anything other than that kind of metallic coloration, that metallic white, but that's really about it. There's honestly not too much to go over as far as an animal like this goes, but I definitely think Collecta has done a great job on the figure and definitely has done this species justice, which is now quite a few species in to these really cool aquatic species that they've been creating. And again, another really nice cephalopod by Collecta. Now, you could probably already tell that I'm not the most knowledgeable man when it comes to cephalopods and different aquatic species like this, as it's something that I've never really gotten too super into, reading about or even interested in general. But the fact that it is a prehistoric creature is still absolutely awesome, and it's one that I did not have in my collection, so I was really excited to add one to my collection because I like to have a pretty extensive collection species-wise. Anytime I can get a new species to enter my collection, I am beyond over the moon excited about it, and this is definitely one that I did not have prior to this. As far as a size goes, if we go, I would say down here is probably the longest point, so you're looking at about, I'd say about 4 inches or 10 centimeters pretty much right there. I'd say, yeah, about that. About 4 inches or 10 centimeters for a length, and then for a height, the highest point is a little over 3 inches or approaching 8 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Cooperoceras, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our 2022 Collecta Cooperoceras, and you can definitely see that it sports a pretty impressive size. Like, obviously, by no means is it a huge figure, but at the same time, it definitely has a pretty impressive size considering the species that it is representing, and it's not any type of a super small figure. I would say it's probably around the medium size range, maybe like small approaching medium. It again does still sport a pretty darn nice size. And then for some more comparisons, here is the Orthoceras in comparison to the Cooperoceras, and you can see that, again, if you happen to have this figure, I don't really recall what year this was made. So it says 2019, so odds are that was a 2020 release. And you can see how these two size up in comparison to each other if you happen to have that figure. Then we've got the Bellum Knight here from Collecta, again showing off the size in comparison to our Cooperoceras. If you happen to have the Bellum Knight, this as well, I believe, was, yes, another release from 2020, I believe. Again, it says 2019, so usually if it says that year, it would be the year after that it's actually released. Because, like, for instance, here on the Cooperoceras, you could see, if we get it over here, it'll say 2021. So that's when the figure was made, but it was released in 2022. Well, obviously. And then we've got ourselves the Nautilus, which was also released by Collecta not long ago. And again, giving you a pretty good idea of the size. These two are not too far off as far as the size goes, but the Cooperoceras is a little bit bigger than the Nautilus is. And since I've used them a few times for some Collecta comparisons lately, there is the Collecta Dimetrodon in comparison to the Cooperoceras. Again, showing off the fact that the figure definitely has some pretty decent size to it, especially in comparison to the Dimetrodon. And then for one last comparison, here is the more standard-sized version of the Collecta Dinochirus in comparison to the Cooperoceras. So if you happen to have the Dinochirus, which was definitely a popular figure from Collecta, which you could see why just by looking at it there, but you can definitely see again, hopefully, what the size roughly is of the brand new Cooperoceras. So although this year's line isn't quite as large as some previous years from Collecta, it definitely is jam-packed with some incredible figures, and this Cooperoceras is definitely another one. I really like this species because, again, it's a species that I don't have in my collection at all, unless I maybe have it in like a mini form. I don't know positively if I do or not, but I definitely don't have a good-sized figure. I don't have one that honestly gives the creature its due like I do now with this Collecta version. This version is absolutely fantastic. Of course, it is very highly detailed, sporting pretty much the exact same style of detail that we've seen in previous years as far as these aquatic species, which means that it is absolutely exceptional when it comes to a detailing standpoint, and also, again, such an obscure species for them to produce, which I really love that aspect about the model straight away. It's a species that I honestly didn't expect them to make. I kind of thought eventually they would steer away from the aquatic species because they had made so many over the past few years, but I'm actually pretty happy to see that they haven't. I'm happy to see that they've stuck with them, and now they're creating even more because it's just creatures that are consistently overlooked when it comes to models. Like, not many people take opportunities to create different aquatic species like this unless you get like your classic ammonite. You know, those ones will usually get figures from almost everyone, but when it comes to species like the Cooperoceras or the Nautilus and stuff like that, like, you just don't usually see that kind of figure from any company. So it's awesome that Collecta has been giving us some over the past few years, and not only giving us some, but probably the best versions of each of these species that we'll see, even if other companies make them. These ones are absolutely fantastic. And again, this one sports a very nice pose to it, very nice color scheme on top of everything. And again, the animal is pretty flashy looking in its own right, but Collecta has done a great job of giving it a very nice naturalistic looking paint scheme that allows it to somehow become even flashier. So as far as these aquatic species from Collecta goes, this honestly might be one of my favorites that they have released so far, and another fantastic figure for the 2022 year. So if you are interested in picking this up, make sure you check back to Everything Dinosaur, follow them on social media, and of course keep checking their website. And you can also check their YouTube channel as well, because that's a pretty good indicator of when they get different figures into stock. But again, this figure should be coming into stock sometime in early, I believe, 2022, so it shouldn't be too far off from now before this is available on Everything Dinosaur. So again, make sure you keep checking back to Everything Dinosaur, pick this up when it comes into stock, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.